I still remember the sound of rain against the music school windows that October morning. 38 years have passed, but some memories stay sharp as broken glass. I was 26, standing in the empty classroom where I'd taught piano to children for 3 years, watching Mr. Henderson nail a permanently closed sign to the door. "I'm sorry, Maya," he said, not meeting my eyes. "The funding just isn't there anymore." I nodded, clutching my lesson books to my chest, like they could shield me from what was coming. My mother's medication alone cost $4,000 a month. The surgery she needed? Another $60,000. I had exactly $732 in my bank account. That evening, I sat at my mother's bedside in our cramped apartment in Queens. She was sleeping, her breathing labored even with the oxygen tube. Stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors said surgery could give her 2 more years, maybe 3. Without it, she had months. My phone buzzed. A text from my college roommate, Sarah. "Saw this. Thought of you." Below was a screenshot of a job posting. Live-in companion needed. Must read aloud 4 hours daily. Private residence, Manhattan. $15,000 per month. Medical insurance included. Contact Chen Legal Services. My hands shook as I stared at that number. 15,000. In 1 month, I could cover Mom's medication. In 4 months, the surgery. It seemed impossible. I called the number before I could talk myself out of it. A woman's crisp voice answered, "Chen Legal Services. This is regarding the companion position?" "Yes, Can you start immediately?" "Yes, but I'd like to know more about..." "The client values privacy. You'll meet him on your first day. Background check will be completed within 24 hours. If approved, you begin tomorrow. Is this acceptable?" I looked at my mother, her face gray in the lamplight. "Yes," I whispered. "It's acceptable." The next evening, I stood outside a building on Central Park West, craning my neck to see the top. The doorman, Jorge, checked his tablet and nodded me through without a word. The elevator rose silently to the penthouse, and I watched the city drop away beneath me. The doors opened directly into the apartment, and I stepped into darkness. Every curtain was drawn. The vast space was lit only by small lamps placed low on the floor, creating pools of amber light that didn't quite touch each other. I could make out the shapes of furniture, the gleam of something that might be a piano, but mostly just shadow. "Hello?" My voice sounded small. "You must be Miss Rodriguez." An older woman appeared from a hallway, Asian, maybe 60, wearing a simple gray dress. "I'm Mrs. Park. I manage the household. Mr. Chen is in the library. This way, please." I followed her through rooms that felt enormous in the dark, past shapes I couldn't quite identify. She stopped at a doorway. "He prefers the curtains closed," she said quietly. "Don't open them. Don't turn on the overhead lights, and please don't ask questions about his appearance or his past. Just read what he requests, and everything will be fine." Before I could respond, she knocked twice and opened the door. The library was darker than the rest of the apartment. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, and in the center of the room, sitting in a leather chair with his back to us, was a man. "Mr. Chen," Mrs. Park said. "Miss Rodriguez is here." "Leave us." His voice was deep, with an edge like frost. Mrs. Park touched my shoulder briefly, comfort or warning. I couldn't tell, and left. I stood there, holding my purse like a shield, staring at the back of that chair. He didn't turn around. "You can read?" he asked. "Yes, of course." Fluently, without stumbling over words. "I taught music, Mr. Chen." "I can read." "Music." Something changed in his voice. "What instrument?" "Piano." "I taught piano to children." A long silence. Then, "There's a chair behind you. Sit." I fumbled backward, found the chair, sat. My hands were sweating. "Mrs. Park will give you the schedule. 4 hours of reading, mid-morning to early afternoon. Medical textbooks, mostly. Sometimes music theory, sometimes poetry. You'll follow along exactly as written. No editorializing, no commentary, no questions. Is this clear?" "Yes, but I don't understand why you need." "I'm blind, Miss Rodriguez." He still hadn't turned around. "I lost my sight 5 years ago. Mrs. Park reads to me in the evenings, but her English is imperfect. You'll supplement during the day. That's all you need to understand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Save your pity. It's useless to me. You'll be paid on the first of each month. You have your own room and bathroom, kitchen privileges. You're free to leave the apartment on your off hours, but you're expected to be available if I call. Are we understood? Yes. Good. Start tomorrow. 9 a.m. Mrs. Park will show you to your room. I sat there a moment longer, but he said nothing else. Finally, I stood and left, feeling his presence behind me like a weight. Mrs. Park was waiting in the hallway. As she led me to my room, I whispered, "What happened to him?" Her face closed like a door. I told you. No questions. My room was beautiful, far nicer than anywhere I'd ever lived. A full bed with a white comforter, a desk by the window, my own bathroom with a bathtub, but the curtains were drawn here too. And when I tried to open them, Mrs. Park's voice stopped me. "Mr. Chen needs the apartment kept dark. Always. Even in rooms he doesn't enter." "But why?" "Good night, Miss Rodriguez." 9 a.m. That first week felt like living underwater. I'd arrive at the library each morning to find Mr. Chen already in his chair, always with his back to me. I'd read from whichever textbook he'd selected, anatomy, mostly, or musical theory, so advanced I barely understood it, and he'd sit motionless, never turning, never acknowledging me except to tell me to start or stop. Sometimes I'd hear him in other parts of the apartment at night. Footsteps. Once, a crash followed by Mrs. Park's soothing voice. But during my hours, he was silent as stone. I noticed things, though. The way his hands gripped the chair arms when I read certain passages about nerve damage. The way his breathing changed when I stumbled over a word. The way he always wore long sleeves and gloves, even in the overheated apartment. On Thursday of the second week, I made a mistake. I finished a chapter early and, without thinking, stood and walked to the window. The curtains were heavy velvet, and I pulled one aside just an inch to let in a sliver of afternoon sun. "What are you doing?" His voice cracked like a whip. I spun around. He'd stood, and for the first time, he was facing me. Not fully, he was turned slightly away, and he wore dark glasses despite the darkness, but I could see his profile. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair graying at the temples, a strong jaw. "I just wanted to see the view," I stammered. "I didn't think." "You're paid to think, Miss Rodriguez. You're paid to read. Close the curtain." I let it fall, my heart hammering. "I'm sorry." He stood there a moment longer, his hands still gloved, clenched at his sides. Then he sat back down, turned away from me again. "Continue reading." My voice shook for the rest of the hour. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about his voice, the edge of something in it that wasn't anger, fear, maybe, or shame. And I kept thinking about those gloves, about the way he moved through the apartment at night, always careful, always alone. I grabbed my laptop and searched, Alexander Chen, Blind Manhattan. The first result was a New York Times article from 5 years ago. Renowned pianist and surgeon injured in hospital fire. My breath stopped. I clicked through article after article, piecing together the story. Dr. Alexander Chen, dual degree in medicine and music from Columbia, performed at Carnegie Hall while completing his surgical residency, called a prodigy in both fields. And then, 5 years ago, a fire in the pediatric ward at Mount Sinai. He'd been doing rounds. When the fire started, he'd run back in 3 times, carrying out children who couldn't walk, breaking through doors with his bare hands. He'd saved 7 children and lost everything. The burns had damaged his hands irreparably, according to one article. The smoke had destroyed his optic nerves. In one night, he'd lost both his careers, both his arts, everything that defined him. The last article was from 4 years ago. Reclusive Dr. Chen refuses all interviews, family concerned. I closed my laptop, my throat tight. Suddenly, the darkness made sense. The gloves, the bitterness in his voice. He wasn't hiding from the world out of vanity. He was hiding from himself. The next morning, I arrived at the library with a book I'd brought from home. My old copy of The Phantom of the Opera. Mr. Chen was in his chair as always. "Good morning," I said. "I thought we could read something different today. I select the reading material, Miss Rodriguez." "I know. But I thought you might like this one. It's about music, and about someone who lived in darkness. A long pause. Why? His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Because I think you'd understand him. The Phantom. He wasn't evil. He was just lonely. I pay you to read what I assign, not to psychoanalyze me. You're right. I'm sorry. I set the book on the table. I'll read the anatomy text. But as I reached for the textbook, he spoke. Chapter 1. Start there. I looked up. What? The Phantom. Start at Chapter 1. I picked up my book, my hands trembling slightly, and began. Something changed after that. He never turned around, never let me see more than his profile, but he started requesting different books, novels, poetry, music biographies, and sometimes he'd comment, small things, a correction to my pronunciation, an observation about a character, once, almost inaudibly, a laugh. 3 weeks into my employment, I found him collapsed in the hallway outside the library. Mr. Chen! I dropped to my knees beside him. He was breathing but unconscious, and his glasses had fallen off. I reached for them instinctively, to put them back, and my hand brushed his face. The right side was smooth. The left side was a landscape of scars. I froze, my fingers still touching his cheek, feeling the ridges of old burns. Not monstrous, not horrible, just evidence of pain, evidence of sacrifice. His eyes opened. They were gray, unfocused, but beautiful even without sight. Don't, he whispered. Don't look at me. I'm not looking, I said softly. I'm seeing. There's a difference. He tried to pull away, but I held his face gently between my hands. You saved 7 children, I whispered. I know what happened. I read about it. You're not a monster, Mr. Chen. You're a hero. I'm a ruin. His voice broke. I can't operate. I can't play. I can't even see the faces of the people I talk to. What kind of hero is that? The kind who went back 3 times. The kind who used his hands, his precious, talented hands, to break through fire to save children. The kind who sacrificed everything. Tears were sliding down his scarred cheek. I wiped them away. Let me help you to your room. He nodded, unable to speak, and I helped him stand. He was taller than I'd realized, broad-shouldered despite the way he hunched. I guided him down the hall to a bedroom I'd never entered. Helped him sit on the bed. Stay, he said quietly. Please, just for a minute. I sat beside him, and we were silent in the darkness. Finally, he spoke. My hands. Do you want to see? Only if you want to show me. Slowly, he pulled off the gloves. His hands were scarred like his face, the fingers twisted slightly, the skin shiny in places. But they were still hands, still capable. I can't play anymore, he said. Not like I did. I try sometimes, late at night when everyone's asleep, but it's wrong. It's ugly. Everything I touch becomes ugly. That's not true. How would you know? Because you touched my face just now, and I felt nothing but gentleness. He made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Go away, Maya, he whispered, using my first name for the first time. Before I make you part of the darkness too. What if I like the dark? He turned toward me, his blind eyes searching. Why? Because you're in it. I stood and left before I could say anything else, before I could do something stupid like kiss him. After that night, everything shifted. He started asking me to stay after the reading time, just to talk about music. Mostly. About the pieces he used to play, the surgeries he used to perform. He told me about the fire, about the children's faces, about waking up weeks later wrapped in bandages, knowing his life was over at 33. My cousin Helena visited me once in the hospital, he said one afternoon. She stood in the doorway and said, well, I guess I'll inherit everything after all. Then she left. Haven't seen her since, though her lawyers call constantly. That's horrible. That's family. He smiled, a real smile this time. Mrs. Park is more family than any blood relative. She was my mother's housekeeper. When I was released from the hospital, she refused to leave. Said she'd made a promise to my mother before she died. Your mother died when I was 20. My father a year later. Helena is the only Chen left besides me, and she's been counting down the days until this place is hers. He gestured vaguely at the apartment. You're only 38. You could live another 50 years. Ah, but she's betting I won't. She's betting that one day I'll decide the darkness isn't worth it anymore. His face was serious. She might be right. Don't say that. Why not? It's the truth. What do I have to live for, Maya? I can't create anything anymore. I can't help anyone. I'm just existing. You're listening, I said fiercely. You're still here. That matters. Does it? To me it does. He reached out, his scarred hand finding mine in the darkness. You're a strange girl, Maya Rodriguez. You're a strange man, Alexander Chen. He laughed, really laughed, and the sound filled the room like music. That night, I heard it. Piano music, floating through the apartment at 2 a.m. I got up, wrapped my robe around myself, and followed the sound. He was in the living room, at a grand piano I'd never noticed in the darkness. He sat on the bench, his hands hovering over the keys, playing something beautiful and broken. A Chopin nocturne, I thought, but wrong somehow. The notes were right, but the timing was off. The touch, uneven. He stopped suddenly. I know you're there. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. It's terrible, isn't it? My playing. No. Don't lie to me, Maya. I can hear it. My left hand is too slow. The scars pull the tendons, and I can't see the keys, can't correct myself. It's a mockery of what I used to do. I walked closer. Play it again. Why torture both of us? Just play. He sighed and began again. The same piece, the same mistakes. I listened carefully, then reached out and placed my hand over his left hand. Wait, I said. Feel that? You're fighting the scars. Stop trying to play like you used to. Play like you are now. What does that mean? It means the scars are part of you. Work with them, not against them. Here I adjusted his fingers slightly. Try that chord progression instead. Slower. Let the right hand carry the melody, while the left provides texture, not precision. He played, and this time it was different. Still not perfect, but beautiful in its imperfection. Like kintsugi, the Japanese art of mending broken pottery with gold. My God, he whispered. How did you? Because you're not broken, Alexander. You're just different. And different can still be beautiful. We stayed there until dawn. Me guiding his hands, him playing piece after piece, rediscovering music through touch and memory instead of sight and perfection. When the sun started to rise, he stopped and turned toward me. I want to see you, he said. I'm right here. No. I want to really see you. Let me. He raised his hands to my face, and I held still as his fingers traced my features. My forehead, my eyebrows, the curve of my nose, my lips, my jaw. You're crying, he said softly. What aren't you telling me? That I'm falling in love with you, I whispered, and I don't know if that's allowed. His fingers stilled on my face. Maya, I know. I'm your employee. This is inappropriate. I should go. But as I started to pull away, he held my face gently, the way I'd held his that day in the hallway. You asked if it's allowed, he said quietly. Maybe the better question is, do I want to stop you? Do you? No. He leaned forward and kissed me, careful and soft, like he was afraid I'd break. God help me, no. We were happy for exactly 6 days. On the 7th day, Helena came. I was in my room when Mrs. Park knocked on my door, her face pale. Miss Rodriguez, there's someone here to see Mr. Chen, his cousin. She's brought lawyers. We hurried to the living room, where Alexander sat in his chair, his face carefully blank. A woman stood by the window she'd thrown back the curtains, letting in harsh sunlight that made Alexander flinch. Helena, he said coldly. Cousin. She was in her 40s, blonde, immaculately dressed. I came as soon as I heard... Heard what? About your little arrangement. She gestured at me with distaste. Hiring a live-in companion? A young, pretty girl to take advantage of your condition? Alexander, I'm concerned. Your concern is noted and dismissed. Leave. I can't do that. Not when I have evidence that you're being manipulated, that you're no longer capable of managing your own affairs. One of the lawyers stepped forward, holding papers. Mr. Chen, we have testimony from several of your doctors indicating your depression and isolation have severely impaired your judgment. We're petitioning to have your assets placed in a conservatorship until such time as— You're trying to have me declared incompetent? Alexander's voice was deadly quiet. For your own good, Helena said smoothly. You clearly can't be trusted to make sound decisions. This girl, she looked at me with contempt, is obviously using you. Probably after your money. How long before she convinces you to change your will? Get out. I can't. The hearing is next week. But Alexander, her voice turned syrupy. If you cooperate, make this easy, I'll make sure you're comfortable. A nice facility, proper care. A facility? He stood shaking. You want to lock me away? I want you safe, away from people who would exploit you. Miss Rodriguez has done nothing but worm her way into your life? Your home? Your bed? Probably? Helena smiled. A poor music teacher suddenly living in luxury? Please. It's textbook manipulation. I felt the words like slaps, but Alexander's face had gone white with rage. Mrs. Park, he said quietly, call my lawyers. Now. But as Mrs. Park rushed to the phone, Alexander swayed. I reached him just as his legs gave out, catching him as he collapsed. Alexander. His breathing was rapid, shallow. Panic attack, I realized. Or worse. Call an ambulance, I screamed. Helena watched with her arms crossed as the paramedics arrived, as they loaded Alexander onto a stretcher, as I climbed into the ambulance beside him. I'll be in touch, she called as the doors closed. You can't save him, sweetheart. He's already lost. At the hospital, they stabilized him. Stress-induced cardiac episode, the doctor said. He needed rest, reduced anxiety, definitely no legal battles. I sat by his bed in the ICU, holding his scarred hand. I'm so sorry, I whispered. This is my fault. Don't be stupid, he muttered. His eyes were closed, but his fingers tightened on mine. Helena's been planning this for years. She's just been waiting for the right moment. What do we do? We? Maya, there is no we. You should leave. Go back to your life. If you stay, she'll destroy you too. I'm not leaving. She'll make your life hell. She'll dig up every embarrassing thing you've ever done. She'll paint you as a gold digger, a manipulator. Is that what you want? I want you. He turned toward me, tears sliding down his face. I'm not worth it. Let me decide that. A knock on the door. Mrs. Park entered, followed by a doctor in a white coat. Mr. Chen, the doctor said. I'm Dr. Sarah Winters. I specialize in optic nerve reconstruction. I've been following your case for years. Alexander's jaw tightened. I've seen every specialist in the country. The damage is permanent. It was. But there's a new procedure. Experimental. Stem cell therapy combined with neural regeneration. It won't restore perfect vision, but you might regain enough to see shapes, light, faces. I felt Alexander's hand tremble in mine. What's the catch? He asked. It's expensive. Dangerous. And there's only a 30% chance of success. But Mr. Chen, she leaned forward, I believe you're a good candidate, if you're willing to try. Why now? His voice was suspicious. Why are you bringing this to me now? Because Mrs. Park called me. Because she's been tracking my research for years, waiting for the right moment. And because she glanced at me, she said, you finally have a reason to want to see again. Alexander was silent for a long moment. Then, how much? 200,000. He laughed bitterly. I have the money. But if Helena gets her conservatorship, I won't have access to it. The hearing is in 6 days, Mrs. Park said quietly. If you schedule the surgery for 5 days from now, you can pay before she freezes your accounts. And if it doesn't work? Alexander asked. If I'm still blind and broke and Helena wins anyway? Then at least you tried, I said softly. At least you didn't let her win without a fight. He turned his face toward me, his blind eyes searching. And you'll be there? When I wake up? I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed my hand. All right. Schedule it. The next 4 days were a blur. Alexander's lawyers filed motions to delay the conservatorship hearing. Helena's lawyers filed counter motions. The press got wind of it, blind doctor in battle with greedy cousin, and suddenly there were reporters outside the hospital. Through it all, I stayed by Alexander's side, reading to him, talking, sometimes just sitting in silence, our hands linked. The night before the surgery, he pulled me close. "If this works," he whispered, "you'll be the first thing I see. And if it doesn't work, you'll be the last person I touch. Either way, Maya Rodriguez, you've given me something I thought I'd lost." "What?" "Hope." The surgery took 8 hours. I sat in the waiting room with Mrs. Park, both of us silent, both of us praying to whatever gods would listen. Finally, Dr. Winters emerged, still in her scrubs. "He's stable," she said. "Now we wait." They kept him in a medically induced twilight for 3 days, letting the grafts take, letting his brain rewire itself. I sat by his bed, reading to him even though he couldn't hear. Reading all his favorite books. Reading him poetry and music theory and, once, whispering all the things I'd been too afraid to say before. On the 3rd day, they woke him up. "Mr. Chen?" Dr. Winters was at his bedside, checking monitors. "Can you hear me?" "Yes." His voice was rough from the breathing tube. "I'm going to remove the bandages. Your eyes will be sensitive. Don't try to open them too quickly." My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. Mrs. Park gripped my hand. Dr. Winters carefully unwound the gauze, layer after layer. Finally, she stepped back. "All right, slowly. Try to open your eyes." Alexander's eyelids fluttered. Once, twice, then opened. He blinked, squinting against even the dim light. His eyes moved left, right, unfocused. I held my breath. Then his gaze found me. "Maya?" His voice cracked. "Is that you?" Tears were streaming down my face. "Yes. You're—" He reached toward me, his scarred hand trembling. "You're beautiful. God, you're so beautiful." I took his hand and pressed it to my cheek. "You can see me?" "Shapes. Colors. Your face is blurry, but I can see you. I can see you." He pulled me down to him, kissing me with tears running down both our faces. "It worked," he whispered against my lips. "It actually worked." Dr. Winters smiled. "Your vision will improve over the next few weeks. You'll never have perfect sight, but you'll be able to navigate, read, large print, see faces. Mr. Chen, you've been given a second chance." "No." He looked at me, his gray eyes seeing me for the first time. "I've been given a first chance. At a real life. A life worth living." The conservatorship hearing was canceled after that. Helena's lawyers withdrew when it became clear Alexander was not only mentally competent, but recovering physically. She sent one final text. "You won. For now." We ignored her. Alexander's vision improved slowly. He started physical therapy for his hands, learning to play piano again with his limited sight and scarred fingers. It wasn't Carnegie Hall caliber anymore, but it was his. And it was beautiful. 3 months later, we stood in the living room of the penthouse. The curtains were open, sunlight streaming in, and Alexander was at the piano. "Are you ready?" I asked. "As ready as I'll ever be." He'd rented out Carnegie Hall for the afternoon. Not for a public concert, he wasn't ready for that, but for private guests. Mrs. Park, his old colleagues from the hospital, the 7 children he'd saved, now teenagers, with their families, and me. He played for an hour, a program of pieces he'd adapted for his new limitations. Chopin with simplified left-hand parts. Debussy played slower, more meditative. And one piece he'd composed himself, halting and imperfect but honest. When he finished, the teenagers rushed the stage, hugging him, crying, thanking him. One girl, about 16, held his scarred hand and said, "You gave me my life. Now you get to live yours." Afterward, as we walked through Central Park, Alexander stopped and turned to me. The evening sun was golden on his face, catching the scars and the tears. "Maya Rodriguez," he said, "6 months ago, you walked into my darkness and refused to leave. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. You gave me back my music, my sight, my life." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a small box. "Please, let me spend the rest of my life seeing you." I couldn't speak, could only nod as he slipped the ring on my finger. "Yes," I finally whispered. "Yes, always yes." We were married at that same concert hall 3 months later. Mrs. Park cried through the entire ceremony. The 7 children Alexander saved were his groomsmen and bridesmaids. And when the pianist played our recessional, Alexander leaned down and whispered, That's wrong. The tempo should be faster. I laughed. Do you want to play it yourself? Next time. He kissed me. Next time, I'll play everything. I'm 64 now. Alexander is 76. His sight has faded again over the years. The procedure gave us 20 good years before the deterioration started, but we don't live in darkness anymore. Our daughter, Elena, is a pianist. Our son, Michael, is a surgeon. They carry their father's gifts forward in ways he never could alone. And sometimes, late at night, I still wake to the sound of piano music. I'll find Alexander at the keyboard, his hands moving over keys he can no longer see, playing by touch and memory. Playing the music of a life we built together from scars and sacrifice and stubborn, foolish hope. He'll hear me and stop, reaching out. I'll take his hand, still scarred, always scarred, and lead him back to bed. I love you, he'll whisper in the darkness. I know, I'll answer. I've known since that first night, when you asked me to read about the phantom. When you understood what it meant to live in darkness and still reach for beauty. Did I ever tell you, he'll say, that I could hear your heartbeat that day? When you found me in the hallway? It was racing. You were terrified. I was. But you stayed anyway. I stayed anyway. And in the darkness of our bedroom, his scarred hands will find my face, reading me like Braille, seeing me the way he saw me first, not with eyes, but with touch, with love. Maya, he'll whisper. Alexander, thank you for everything. Thank you for letting me stay. The darkness isn't empty anymore. It never was. It was just waiting for us to fill it with music.